What's the most used man-made material on Earth? I'll give you the answer. Concrete. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. Have you ever stopped to think about the sidewalks, driveways, bridges, or the buildings around you? They're all made from concrete. So why don't we discuss it more? In each episode of Concrete Logic, we'll explore a unique concrete-related topic with the help of industry professionals shaping the trade's future. We'll talk with suppliers, contractors, architects, engineers, specialists, and even proponents of competing materials. We'll get their views on concrete and their visions for its future. So get ready to mix things up with Concrete Logic, where we turn the spotlight on the material that's everywhere but often overlooked. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. And now, here's your host, Seth Tandett.
And welcome to another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast. And today I have Chen Wang with me. She's CEO of Steelike. You might recognize the name Steelike. We've had Bill Coolish on before. We've talked about Steelike before. They're the ultra-high performance concrete or composite. Bill always corrects me. It's a composite, not concrete. But anyways, Chen, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming. Before
Happy
we get
to be here.
Yeah, and today she's going to help us learn about intellectual property, trade secrets, and patents. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we get started, just want to remind everyone how you can help out the show, support the show. The first thing you can do is if you enjoy this episode or any of the 140-something episodes that we've put out so far, make sure you share it. Don't be selfish. Share it with a colleague or a coworker. The second thing you can do is if you go to the website, www.concretelogicpodcast.com, you can leave me a voicemail by clicking. There's a little microphone in the bottom right-hand corner of the homepage, and several folks have done that. You click on that. Just leave me a message. And what we're looking for are topic or guest suggestions. So you will enjoy the podcast even more if you contribute by tell me what you want to hear, what you want to learn about. So that's the second way. Third way is on that same homepage is in the top right-hand corner, there's a donate button, and this podcast lives on donations, and you can click on that and give any amount. And today I want to thank Carl Watson, CEO of Baker Construction. I told you I was going to mess it up. Baker Construction. Sorry, Carl. But thank you, Carl, for your donation. It is greatly appreciated. Carl's been a supporter of the show for quite some time, even before he joined the Baker team. So I appreciate your donation, Carl. So you all can donate as well, and I'll give you a shout out if you want me to. Also, if you enjoy the podcast, make sure you check out Concrete Logic Academy. So same topic, same format as the podcast, except for you go in there and you listen to an episode, fill out and complete a quiz, and we'll give you a continuing educational unit or professional development hour, PDHs, for you professional engineers out there that need them. Check it out. It's easy to do, concretelogicacademy.com. All right, Chen. Thank you for coming on. We're going to talk about, like I said, intellectual property. So I don't think most people in construction think about intellectual property until they have a good idea and somebody takes it. And then I also want to talk about, if we can talk about the difference between patents and trade secrets, what they are, how companies actually protect them, and what contractors and engineers should know so they don't get burned. Also, before we get really into it, is to make sure you all understand that none of this is legal advice. We're just giving you a high-level education so you guys understand how this stuff works. So, not legal advice. All right, Chen.
Yes. Hi, Seth. Thanks
Hi.
so much for having me. It's my pleasure. It's an honor. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts, and it's very exciting to finally meet you and speak with you directly.
Yeah.
So,
Can you share a little bit about your background and why you're an expert in IP?
Sure, it's my pleasure. So I actually came from the IP world. I have an engineering background, and then I went to law school, and then I was a intellectual property attorney for a number of years, both at the law firm level as well as in-house at DuPont. And then I went into policy work for intellectual property at a trade association. So I've been talking about intellectual property for most of my career. And it's only been recently, last 5 years that I joined Steelike. It's a startup that Bill and I co-founded, and part of the conditions of investment by some investors was that I joined full-time as the CEO. So I'm pretty much the CEO and general counsel of Steelike, but, I still speak about IP on the circuit with, various associations, and I'm very plugged into the profession still.
Perfect. So you can answer a lot of these questions, or maybe all of them. But can we start with what is intellectual property? What is that? Let's just start with
Sure.
that.
Yeah, so we all know what a property is, right? A property is something that you own, and it's either intangible or tangible. Something tangible would be like a thing or real estate. That's real property or a tangible property. Intellectual property is really not tangible, is not something you can really touch. It's really associated with either knowledge or a sense of branding. So, for example, the term intellectual property includes trademarks, copyright, trade secret, or know-how. They kind of are interchangeable, and patents. That's really the four main ones. There's other ones, but those are the four that most people, have a relationship with in their working world when they do. And it's a creation. It's a creation that's not really touchable. So trademark, for example, is the name Coca-Cola, for example, or the label Steelike, or in your case, Concrete Logic. That's a trademark, a brand. And if you register it with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, it becomes a registered trademark. But even if you don't register it, you could have a trademark that is unregistered. A copyright is something usually in writing or a song, so it could be a book, it could be, a movie, it could be something like an audio, like a record or CD or whatever they do these days, in the medium, in the electronic medium, or even your podcast, could be copyrighted, something, and all of these, they're property of the owner who basically claim that right. And once you claim that right, there's actually conditions that restrictions that you as the owner can put on the right in terms of other people being able to use it or hear it or some. That's why, you have to go buy a movie or go see a movie, at a theater. You can't just go record it and then sell that recorded movie everywhere. That would be not good. That would be illegal. That would be an infringement on somebody's copyright, basically. It would be a misappropriation. And a patent is usually on a technology, on some sort of an innovative development that is invention of some kind, a technological invention. And all of these are territorial in nature. What I mean by that is, patents, if you go get a patent at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and get a patent granted, the territorial effect is your rights, your patent rights are within the United States. It's not going to be in England. It's not going to be in Australia. You'd have to go seek more patent rights in those other jurisdictions. So it's a legal right. And that's the same for copyright and know-how, etc. Except with copyright and know-how, especially know-how, you don't have to register it because it is secret. So you protect it in a different way.
Yeah. Different control, right? So when a patent, it takes an investment to make that. They're quite expensive. So when do you know when you need to, I guess, go for a patent? Like when do you need to protect what you know idea?
Sure. So if you come up with invention, that's a very good question. What do you do with it? Do you just, keep it as trade secret or you go get a patent. It really depends on how much you have to share about it and how reverse engineerable it is. So for example, the Coca-Cola drink, right? They probably their formula on the Coca-Cola drink, the syrup, like what the recipe is, that would be trade secret because they're not going to share that with anyone. However, if they came up with a nifty way to bottle Coca-Cola, like a machine or something, that's something that they'd have to kind of distribute out to the bottlers, right? And so that goes out to a lot of people. And so as a result, it may not be appropriate to maintain it as a trade secret. What a patent does is it actually publishes the technology, what the invention is. It's a contract that we have, the inventor has, with the office that's granting the patent. So in the United States, with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And it's basically saying the patent office is saying, if you disclose your invention, we'll give you a monopoly for a number of years. And right now, the term is 20 years from the date of the earliest filing. After that, it's dedicated to the public. So it's got a limited term. And during that 20-year period, once you get a granted patent, you can enforce it. So if you see someone, copy your machine that you patented, your piece of equipment, you can say you can go and then sue them in court and prevent them from selling the machine or using the machine.
So in concrete, would you would know this since I think you've been through this, I'm assuming, but so like a formulation or production process or installation method, or you mentioned equipment. So all those would be intellectual property, but would all those things need to be in the patent or some of those things, or I don't know if you were following me.
Yes, absolutely. So how do you make decisions on how to protect your innovations, right?
Yeah.
Your technological innovations. So it really depends on what kind of protection or allocation of funds or resources people in terms of protecting it. And you have to make that kind of decision pretty upfront. So for example, if you want to keep something trade secret, you can't go file for a patent application and then decide to keep it trade secret, because if you've already disclosed it, it's no longer a trade secret. A trade secret is really something that you limit the knowledge of. You keep it confidential. You have to have a way of protecting the confidentiality. So this is where the non-disclosure agreement or confidentiality agreement comes in. You have to have infrastructure associated with keeping the trade secret. And then you have to maintain secret by making sure that you're enforcing your confidentiality. When it comes to patents, you go through the application process. That's a lot of money. And then you have to make sure that you want to sue people. You have to come up with an allocation of resources so that you are suing people. You have to send them warning letters and making sure that you're enforcing your patent. Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper. So in the construction industry, the way, at least for Steelike, the way that we see it is our formulation is trade secret. We basically decided that we're going to maintain the formula for our UHPC as trade secret. Not even our blender knows all the ingredients and recipe of that formulation, and we keep it really segmented in a way where it's protected. Okay. And then we have other forms of trade secret. We have constructability, know-how where we make things easier on the bridge. And we maintain that as trade secret. But we have a licensing program where we can, in fact, teach that, what happens on the bridge to the contractor. And we make sure that they understand that belongs to Steelike. and they can only use it with Steelike UHPC, and they pay a royalty on it. It's got a value to us, right? And it's got a value to them. So they really, can't be sharing it everywhere else. We do have patents, and that's really on our equipment. We have a pumping and spraying equipment that we call a SUPA. That's patent pending. And we also have tools that we patented because that's kind of like seen on the bridge. You can see it. And if people start copying our tools, then we'll know and we'll be enforcing those patents.
That's interesting because I know of I don't want to, if I say it, I'll give it away, but someone in our industry, I've heard a certain company that has a patent on let's just call it, we'll say an admixture. And what I hear outside of them is, all those people do is sue everyone that's trying to do something similar to them. And what you just said, that makes sense now, is that's kind of part of it, the patent's job, right? You got to protect your patent. So that's why all these folks are getting letters saying, you're infringing on our patent, stop, and I guess stop doing what you're doing or else,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
If you have a patent, if you decide to go the patent route, you have to enforce your patent. Otherwise, it's just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. So if I guess the bad side of a patent is that you're publishing your secret, right? And so a trade secret you're keeping within internally, and you have your own internal controls on how you keep that a secret.
Yes.
So I can see how that's a pro and con, because as soon as you publish that patent, there's like it's like a clock's going counting down to when everybody can just take your idea and run with it.
Once it's published, right?
Yeah.
It's no longer a trade secret if you get a patent, and you may not get a patent, right? You might, because a patent application can get published before you get granted a patent. Publication date is set from, 18 months after your filing date. So during that 18 months, if you don't get a patent, you may have a published patent application, but not a patent. Okay. If you get a patent after the 18 months, then you can retroactively start enforcing from the date of your publication. Now, we're getting too technical here. This is why you need a lawyer. but basically, there are risks associated with patent. But with patents, if you're willing to enforce it, it gives you a monopoly for a period of time.
But
So
you could handle a trade secret so that you have a monopoly as well, right? If you do it right.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Coca-Cola formula. It's been around for over 100 years.
Yeah.
And there's no term limit to it. As long as they keep it a secret and they're maintaining their secrecy, they could actually, I think in the news, there have been quite a number of times where, there was criminal prosecution for people who tried to steal the trade secret. It's a theft. So, employees who are, or ex-employees who basically misappropriate and, share a trade secret unauthorized to others, the recipient of that trade secret could be prosecuted for theft, and the person that actually did that sharing can be prosecuted for theft.
Is that because they're under a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA, or how do they enforce that, I guess?
Well, there's a law about trade secret misappropriation. So there's a federal law. And then, yes, there would be a private agreement, a non-disclosure agreement that basically, contractually obligates all employees who have access to the trade secret to not share it with others. And now, as you may know, non-disclosure agreement covers a whole bunch of confidential information. It's not just trade secret. It's anything. It could be business information. It could be customer, information. It could be your schedule for launching, your product development. All of those are confidential information, but there are a specific set of laws associated with maintaining trade secret. And so you don't share your trade secret even within a company, even if you have an NDA. You don't share it with everybody. You share it with only people who have a need to know, and only to the extent they need to know. And so there's got to be a lot of infrastructure to protect and segment trade secret.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I think what it is a lot of planning. You have to think about your business model and how you're deploying various types of innovations and what you're going to monetize and how much is it worth to you? How much could it be worth to the company, and allocate your resource, appropriately in view of all of that.
Yeah. How do you know you have a trade secret? Like, how do you know it's something that's worth something?
That's a really good question. I think you make a decision whether or not it is a trade secret. I would say if you don't, when in doubt, maintain it as a trade secret until it's no longer, a trade secret. If you believe that there is nothing like this that has ever happened before, then you start and treat it as a trade secret until you find it in a publication or you realize that someone else has something. But even if you have the exact same thing as someone else, if you're maintaining a trade secret, they won't know, right? So, just like, if you're Coca-Cola, if your formula for Coca-Cola, if you kept a Coca-Cola too, not call it Coca-Cola, maybe call it Seth Cola. And, you realize it tastes exactly like Coca-Cola, but you came up with it independently. So long as you keep your Seth Cola formula secret, it's a trade secret.
Is there any way that you can say someone calls you and you're talking about an idea that you have and you find out later that right after they heard your idea, they went and did that idea? Is there any way to recoup any loss or any
It depends on
way?
what kind of arrangement you've had with that person,
Uh-huh.
right? So if you shared it without confidential agreement,
Uh-huh.
and there was no restrictions to what they can do with it, it's going to be difficult. But if that's why there's always, there should be a level of communication about expectations before you share information, confidential information with others. So yeah, that's very basic in terms of making sure that you're protecting yourself is, before you start sharing information, you think about what are the parameters? Why am I sharing the information? What is the purpose? What's the goal, and what are the restrictions on the information I share, to the recipient. That's basically the elements of a confidentiality agreement.
So, yeah, just get them to sign something that they're not going
Yeah,
to use or disclose what you're talking about before you tell them your fantastic idea.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, when I was at DuPont, it's very difficult for us to, for a large company to want to sign every confidential information before they speak to an individual because you kind of get locked up, right? And so there's a lot of assessments that needs to happen before an agreement is signed. So they have to have a level of legitimacy, before a confidential information agreement is signed.
Yeah. Because some of them got a term tied to them too. Like you can't
Right.
say anything or do anything with whatever the non-disclosures tied up with for years.
Yes.
We see them at Baker a lot to see drawings and documents on a project,
Yes.
and they're like, that's why we send it to our legal department. Say, take a look at this before we sign it.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
I
why you
don't
have
think.
lawyers.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
don't think people fully look at those things because it just seems like a lot of projects these days it's got NDA tied to them.
And some of them could be legitimate. I mean, some of them, if it's a design build, for example, right, they want to make sure that their design is maintained confidential and you're not. We get a lot of that, as suppliers, we may get multiple contractors wanting to share their schedule with us. And certainly we want to give them comfort that we're not going to share, contractor A's, design with contractor B and vice versa, right? That's segmented. So there's that. But then if it overreaches, that's where the issue becomes, right? Sometimes we just get an NDA and we don't get anything in return. That's really anything other than the documents that you would get from the bridge owner. It's like,
Right.
well, what's the point of this, right?
Yeah. So what else should you look for? I mean, we were kind of looking at an angle as it's your idea and you're protecting your idea, but that's a great point. What else should you look for if you have to sign an NDA to see documents or
I
whatever?
think really with all NDAs, either you're the recipient or it's a mutual or you're a discloser. You got to be clear on why you're signing it. What is the purpose? Why are you signing it? What do you hope to get out of it? And what is the ultimate need to disclose information you contemplate closing or sharing,
Mhm.
right? It's all of that, and then you kind of need to think about, okay, in view of that, is it is it in my interest to sign this NDA?
Yeah.
I mean, we have in the past, as a company, Steelike, refused to sign NDAs because we just thought it was overreaching.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on what the purpose and goal and parameters are. So that's why I think that conversation with a legal counsel would be important because it's pretty, specific to that circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah. It just seems like a lot of them. And then there's
Yeah,
probably
there are a lot of NDAs
smaller
out there.
guys. Yeah. Smaller companies out there probably just, they don't even look at them. They just sign them because they want an opportunity to bid on a job. And so they don't really read through them. But yeah, can be scary. You would get someone that likes to sue people and and said,
Well,
you
and
didn't.
that's the other question is, how likelihood are they going to sue you,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. All right. Well, I got a couple quick questions, and we can get wrap this up. This has been fantastic. So, what do you prefer, patent or trade secret?
I have always counseled, large companies, small companies, individuals to think about the portfolio of IP and what the business goal is and what your business model is. What I call an IP strategy, an intellectual property strategy, what you file as patents versus maintaining as trade secrets versus, you know, doing a branding strategy is it needs to kind of be customized and evolve with your product, from the life cycle of a product from nascent research to piloting and development to market launch to maturity and then to renewal of that product in innovation. You have to really think about how long is that life cycle and what do I need to do to protect and capture value throughout that life cycle. So, for example, if you have a product that's out there for 30 years, it's not going to just be patents because you only have a 20-year term with your patents. So, what do you do? Right. And so you want to think about maybe keeping certain things as trade secret, certain parts of it as trade secret, having other parts as patents. Um, and, and patenting could also be part of your marketing strategy. It's not just a strategy to enforce, and capture value in the enforcement way or keeping others from doing it. It also could be part of the marketing and branding strategy. So all of these various forms of IPs need to work together. And that's something that I actually taught as a seminar and went to business by business at DuPont for a number of years because it is very customized. You need to think about it with the business team, not just the R&D side or the technical side, but the entire business strategy needs to be incorporated.
Yeah, I never thought of it like that. What do you think is the biggest misconception of IP and construction?
I don't feel like I am close enough. My career in construction is long enough to really speak at a high level. What I observe is that there is a lot of innovation going on, at least in the UHPC space within ourselves. And I sense that because of that, we're a lot more proactive around managing intellectual property, whereas maybe in other parts of construction where it's been the same over and over again, maybe that's not as necessary.
Yeah.
So I don't know how conscious everyone is about intellectual property.
Yeah. You haven't, I know you've only been with Steelike, you said 5 years, but you haven't ran across something in your work and you're like, wow, this is like when you were at DuPont, that this was something like everyone knew. And in construction, you were kind of blown away that we didn't understand parts of IP.
I think, when I was at DuPont, I actually was part of the Corian business, Corian, the concrete countertop, it's their countertops.
All right.
Yeah, MMA countertops. So there was a lot of patenting associated with the formulation of Corian, as well as installation manual. There was copyright protection associated with installation and things like that. So there was a whole program that DuPont ran licensing Corian installers. Right. So that's on the residential side more so than anything else. I don't know if that is something that's being done, throughout the heavy construction industry as much.
Right.
So, I don't think I don't think I know enough to really opine on the industry itself.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's always, I like to hear from people that haven't been, they had a previous career in another industry and they're in the concrete industry now, and to hear their perspective, like, wow, I can't believe you guys still think like this.
Well, what I have to say is that,
Yeah.
Because the bridge owners do respect IP,
Uh-huh.
they do respect intellectual property, and they put in their they're pretty clear, at least within the United States, that, there should not be any misappropriation of IP, that there is a level of respect for, people's patents, for example, in the construction industry. And that's really setting a tone that's wonderful, for innovators. At the same time, this is a very conservative industry. Understandably, because the liability of trying something new the exposure could be high if it doesn't work, right? So I think there is maybe as a result, less of the pace of adoption for innovations may be quite slow, which I'm not criticizing. It's just an observation, and it's completely understandable.
Yeah. Well, great. This was great today. If folks want to reach out to you and learn more about what you do and Steelike, what's the best way?
You can send me an email at chen@steelike.com.
All right. That's easy
And
enough.
I am the lawyer for Steelike. I cannot be anybody else's lawyer since I am, beholden to Steelike, but I can certainly, send you to my colleagues who are lawyers.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you, Chen, for coming on the show today. I appreciate it. Learned a lot. But yeah, this was great. Patent, trade secrets, and intellectual property all wrapped up.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. And folks, until next time, let's keep it concrete.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast. If you got value from the show, here's how you can provide value back to support the show. Visit concretelogicpodcast.com and click the donate button to send value back. All dollar amounts are truly appreciated. And now, to close out the show, here's Mike Dunton.
That alarm always sings couple hours before the sun comes up. Open up the side, put some diesel in the lights and wait till the trucks roll up. Yeah, this ain't how most folks live their lives, dripping in sweat, working overtime. But while they're tying their ties for their 9 to 5s, we're out here changing these skylines with wood, iron, and mud. We work hard for $1, give thanks to the Lord above. Never make a man do something you can't prove. Hard work calls for a drink or two. Expect more, it's written in our blood. With wood, iron, all-star heat to the woods of the Georgia pine.